Hello, and thank you for joining us for this episode of the Marketing Guides for Small Business podcast. My name is Ian, and I'm joined by Ken and Paul, and together we are your marketing guides. Today, we have a topic that I think is essential for every small business owner, and it's how to build your marketing so your business is worth more. Whether you're running a painting business, a dental clinic, a marketing agency, one thing remains true: building your business right will make it highly attractive for potential buyers down the line. And as small business owners, we understand the importance of creating something of value that will pay dividends when it's time to retire or hand it off to the next generation, and move on to new endeavors. And in this episode, we're diving into the key strategies that you should be employing to increase the valuation of your business and the metrics you need to close it up. It's not just about the products or service you offer. It's about how you build your marketing engine to drive growth, loyalty, and revenue. So let's jump in. And my first question is for Ken. Ken, what role does marketing play in increasing the valuation of a business? And maybe just explain, in case somebody isn't aware, what is a valuation of a business?
Yeah, so valuation of a business is going to happen when somebody is thinking about trying to sell their business, and so there are a lot of factors that go into calculating business valuation, which I won't get into all of those because we're going to really be focusing on how marketing helps with that. But basically, the goal is to get the most you can for your business when you sell it, and so. Um, the first thing is that I would say is systems in general are critical for business valuation and to improve business valuation. You've got to have something that you can transfer from you and your knowledge and expertise, especially if you're, a founder-owned business, where a lot of the business has probably been historically because of you and what you have in your head, or the skills you have with your hands, or whatever it might be. So you've got to do whatever you can to institutionalize your knowledge and expertise. And so we talk about this quite a bit on the podcast, but most people, they forget, and I think it's probably the most important system, because I don't think you can have an effective business without a marketing system. You've got to have a marketing system. That doesn't happen by chance. It needs to be repeatable. It needs to have certain attributes or qualities to it, so that it's an engine that runs and helps to drive your business and your business growth and sustain your business. So what does that all mean? Well, increasing brand awareness, maintaining customer loyalty, keeping customers for a long time, getting customers to come back and buy again, having processes and systems in place to do that, all drive revenue. And they're typically the cheapest way to drive revenue. So if you're spending a ton of money acquiring clients, when people are looking at that at the valuation, or customers or patients, whatever it is, perspective, that could likely scare away some people, because it's like, whoa, that is way too high from the industry standards. And they're going to have benchmarks, from industry standards on what they're looking for. So you need to optimize the efficiency and the effectiveness and the systematization of your marketing. It's great because, marketing done right gives you the ability to have a clear value proposition and a unique selling proposition, depending on the school of marketing that you're coming from in the terminology. Clarity of message. When people, look at your business, do they understand what it is that you do immediately and how you solve their problems? And then, that fundamentally is a huge competitive advantage, because if you do that well, chances are in most industries, your competitors aren't. And until you start to get to larger and larger companies where they do this stuff all the time. It doesn't mean they always get it right, but they usually go through these efforts and activities, probably because ultimately they're beholden to shareholders, in a lot of cases, or even if they're private, they still want to try to optimize and drive that revenue. I think it's just really consistency and systemization of your processes to attract and retain new customers, clients, or patients. that only happens with a marketing system.
Yeah, yeah, that's great, Ken. One of the, I mean, we often talk about how business valuation really is not focused on a lot until you have a major um, a major milestone or transition taking place in the business. So most business owners, like you raised, it's usually related to selling your business. You want to get out, you want to sell it, and that could be succession planning, or that could be trying to find a suitor. What I actually came across a few years ago is we had helped an orthodontist build his practice from one practice to two practices in a regional area. There were some big players, and so it actually positioned him as a real powerhouse in the area because we had built out a marketing system for him, and it was recognized in the area as one of the best orthodontists, not just because of his expertise, but because he had built this marketing system and people thought he was a real juggernaut. And what it was interesting about that is it then made him, it then naturally brought in multiple suitors actually at the same time. He didn't put out a shingle saying, "Hey, I want to merge," but there were other orthodontists in the area who were looking to take on the bigger guys, looking to scale their business and their practice, and they kind of came to the conclusion like this would be a great guy to do that with, so that we could create a unified brand under him. And so that's what they did. And he had four suitors at one point, and eventually merged with two of those guys. So valuing your business can, and you would have to value your business in order to do a merger. So
Yeah,
it's,
yeah.
yeah,
At the end of the day, if you don't have financials that are transportable to to whatever you're transitioning to, another company or whatnot, you have, I mean, you don't have anything. So
yeah,
and the point you just mentioned, I mean, look, life happens. And it doesn't mean that you have to necessarily be thinking about selling. You may be contacted at a certain point in time and get an offer that honestly may be too good to refuse, given where you're at in life, or maybe you use that as an opportunity to say, okay, yeah, I did this, I conquered this. Now it's on to my next challenge. Now you got some cash to deal with to take that on. So there are a lot
yeah.
of different things, and it doesn't always have to be planned. Although, in terms of the selling your business, but you always have to plan for valuation.
Yeah. It can even affect your business loans. If you want to do an expansion of some kind and you want a business loan, of course they're going to be looking at, how fast you're growing, how liquid you are, what your risks are, all that kind of stuff. So it can be super powerful that way too. Paul, how can small businesses build a strong brand to increase their valuation? Ken touched a little bit on this, but can you go into more detail?
Yeah, and something Ken talked about is marketing systems and automations that can help smaller businesses compete with bigger businesses if they have those things in place. But you, a lot of small businesses, the identity of the business, if you will, is the owner. And when it comes to selling or transitioning that business, that can become a problem. So you have to develop a brand identity that's something other than the owner.
Hmm.
And you have to know what your target market is, because your brand identity has to identify with that target market, with that target audience. And once you have that in place, you have to live up to that, whatever your mission statement is, if you will. You have to live up to that, and you have to provide really good customer experience and customer value, and obviously quality of service, quality of product, whatever you're in. That's kind of a no-brainer. It doesn't need to be said. And then you can build brand equity with differentiation and storytelling. What makes you unique? Everyone says we offer great customer service, and that doesn't make you unique. What differentiates you from the competition? And so I think those are a few things to keep in mind when it comes to that. don't want to go too deep into the woods, but yeah, develop your brand identity. Make sure that you communicate what differentiates you, and it's not, oh, we offer great customer service because everyone on the planet says that.
Yep. Yeah, one of the interesting things too in relation to that, Paul, is if you've developed a strong brand and it's tied to you, if you're a local business and it's tied to the location, such as, you know, in our area, it might be like Bradford Dentist or Bradford Dentistry Clinic or something like that, right? And if you've built that brand up to a certain point that it is so strong in the marketplace that you're crushing the competition in your area, regardless of how many there are, it actually gives you, like, you're actually attracted. People are attracted to you because of the brand you've built, and it makes you someone they'd like to at least explore a potential buyout or relationship with.
Yeah, and it, like I said, it goes back to with a lot of small businesses, and you see this all the time, is that the brand identity is the owner, and
Yeah.
that might work great as long as that owner owns a business. But when you go to sell that business or transfer that business, you have no brand identity now.
Yeah. Yeah. Ken, what are some key metrics to track to gauge the effectiveness of your marketing efforts?
Well, there aren't really any.
Okay, cool. Moving on.
No, actually, I talked about this, earlier. Cost of customer acquisition is something that you need to be tracking. Most businesses fail to track this, um, but it's critically important, and that is lifetime value of a customer. Um, Average transaction size, how frequently do people buy from you? Those are all things that you need to keep track of, and try to understand those costs, because ultimately that's going to help you calculate a return on your marketing investment. You got to be looking at your customer retention rates. Do you have high churn? Can you keep that down low? Some businesses are naturally going to have higher churn. Some businesses are naturally going to not have frequency of purchase, like a roofer, but there are ways to deal with that too, right? If you can find a way to build a subscription for your business, then that's a great thing. HVAC contractors have figured this out. They do the annual clean and checks twice a year, spring and fall, air conditioner, heater. They stay top of mind. It's critical. So you need to think about how can you stay top of mind and keep your customers, from coming back and buying from you again, and maintain that brand awareness and the visibility. Those are the things that really jump out at me as the big things that you want to track. Again, I'm always surprised people. Well, and the other thing is, do you have customers that refer you? Have you put a price tag to that, because, or a monetary value, I should say, to that, because that can be massive, and it doesn't even have to be customers. It could be referral partners. Have you built out a referral partner network? What is and look at what is the revenue coming in from a variety of channels, and how can you optimize and drive down to achieve as low a cost as possible effectively for new customer acquisition.
Yeah. Yeah, one that comes to mind too for me is when we're working with dentists, we often do an ROI calculation for marketing investment. So, how much total marketing investment is being spent? So that would be, your marketing system plus your ad spend plus whatever else you're doing, maybe direct mail, maybe vehicle signage, whatever it is, right? Maybe it's signage in your business, or your practice, and then finding out what the return on investment is, what's our revenue growth, and then putting that against that, because when you track that over time, it gives you kind of a barometric pressure of how healthy your marketing investment is and what the return is. And is the ROI going up? Is it going down? Is it seasonal? It's super powerful. Paul, how can a small business leverage digital marketing to increase their valuation?
They can. It doesn't work.
Man,
Now,
you guys are so negative today.
no, this goes back to something Ken says a lot. Is that the only thing you own in the digital space is your website? Okay, you don't own any social media platform. You're you know you're you can't control what some social media platform is going to do. They can cancel your account for absolutely no reason. I think Facebook just got a major fine by the EU, enough to actually make them stand up and take notice. But search engine optimization, we talk about it a lot. The only thing you own is your website, and you have to be found, and that means content marketing, and it works, but you have to invest in it, and it has to be done in a way that the search engines like that. But that doesn't mean you scam the system. You write content for your readers. You offer valuable content. We talk about lead magnets, uh, checklists, things that give value to your customers, your potential customers, to your readers, because it's a long term play. And paid advertising is great. I'm not saying you shouldn't do it. You should, but when you if you're getting a lot of results from Google Ads and you turn that off, it's gone. It Your lead flow basically stops. Whereas search engine optimization is organic, and it will continue to grow. Um, and like I talked about earlier, automation goes back to customer experience. If you're a small business and you're out in the field and you can't answer the phone, someone calls and they immediately get a text. We call it a missed call text back, saying, "Hey, we're sorry we missed your call. Somebody will be reaching out to you." At least you're responding. They probably know it's an automated response, but it's the fact that you responded to them, and it may keep them from going on to the next competitor, which is a bad thing. You don't want to do that. And social media, yeah, you should use social media. Use a social media platform that your customers or clients are on, but keep in mind that, like I said, you don't own that. They can cancel your account. You might do something inadvertently that violates their policies, and they shut down your account, and now that's gone. So, and there are a lot of small businesses out there that they're on Facebook and that's it, and that is a really bad idea. And same thing with Google My Business, or Google Business Profile, sorry. But it's a great platform. People get a lot of leads from their Google Business Profile, but again, you don't own it. And if you do something and these are all algorithms, all automated. These aren't real people looking at things. So you might do something that triggers a red flag in their algorithm, and your account's suspended. And your website isn't going to get suspended. Well, that's not true, Ken. If you get hacked or have some kind of, if Google flags it, or the search engines flag it as spam, but that's a lot less likely to happen if you have security protocols in place. I won't go into that, but generally speaking, your website is the only thing you own. It's what you control. And that's really where you should put in most of your efforts from a digital marketing strategy.
If I can just jump in and add, I mean, what's interesting, Paul talked about search engine optimization, which I know we all love as one of the predominant things. That's an investment, and actually,
and it's a long-term investment.
Yeah, and it's going to continue to to give you benefits, as you talked about. But what's interesting is if you look at what Google is telling the world now in terms of SEO, and how you can win at SEO with their EEAT, their expertise, authority, trust, and experience. I mean, that flat out tells you, in the world of online marketing, if you build up expertise and you're a trusted resource, Google is going to value you more by ranking you higher. duh, equate that to business financial value. It's pretty obvious. So it's absolutely critical from a digital perspective.
Yeah. I was explaining yesterday to a client just how the beauty of a marketing system like what you guys and we install is that the expenditure to the business is very steady, right? It's a steady investment, but the ROI of that investment actually ramps up as time goes by and compounds. Whereas with what you were saying, Paul, if you based all of your marketing on Google Ads, your chart of expenditures, in order to get more leads, you have to ramp it up and pay more, and it's always staying in lockstep with your investment with your result. Whereas you start to get compounding effect in SEO, and that's I think why we get so excited about it.
And paid advertising has increased a lot over the last few
Sure.
years, and that's just going to increase. Your cost per lead has increased. Your cost per click has increased. Everything has increased with paid advertising.
And don't get me wrong, I think we're all in agreement on this too, that it's a very important part of the overall puzzle. But if you were to ignore one thing and it could really hurt you, SEO would be something that a lot of businesses ignore, I think.
Absolutely.
Ken, what role does customer retention play in increasing the valuation of a business?
It's huge because that's the thing that's portable. You know, your processes are portable, your customer base is portable. Most people, and the revenue that's associated with your customer base, right? So if would you acquire a business that had nothing that was going to bring forward in terms of the past revenue that business was doing, and you had to start from scratch? Maybe if there's some intellectual property that's highly valuable, most businesses aren't going to have that. Small businesses, we've talked about, kind of the cult of personality of, is kind of the way a lot of small businesses are built from the owner or the founder perspective, because they're really great at doing their job, or they may be highly visible, and therefore the business is largely equated with that person, even if that's not a fair assessment. Again, the public perception may see it that way. So customer retention is absolutely critical, and being able to pass that revenue along. I mean, that revenue and that customer base along to somebody who's acquiring your business. Um, and in order to do that, you have to have loyalty programs. You have to be paying attention. You have to have systems. Marketing automation is great because you probably have some way to regularly stay on top of communicating with your current customers. Like I talked about, if you don't have a subscription model, you need to try to figure that out for your business, because that that is a transferable asset, and it makes your customers even that much more sticky. Which, I mean, I hate to use that term because nobody wants to be referred to as being sticky, but from a business owner perspective and a business perspective, you need stickiness, because stickiness is where it provides that transferable and long-term value. So customer retention is absolutely critical.
Yeah, two analogies that come to mind is one is the leaky bucket syndrome, right? Where if your bucket has a whole bunch of holes, which would be lack of retention, your bucket's not holding the water, and you have to keep filling it up faster than they leak out, that's a problem. And then the other analogy I think that is helpful for our listeners is a farming mentality versus a hunting mentality, right? You want to build things that will grow to fruition and continue to grow over time, and you can build more crops and you can go after other target audiences. But if you're constantly trying to hunt for every single lead, it gets to be very expensive and time consuming. So hopefully
Yeah,
those are
and it's, I mean, if you're leaking customers,
yeah,
that's
you
a
have big
huge red
problems.
flag. I mean, so yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Hey, Paul, how can small businesses build strategic partnerships to enhance their valuation?
Well, that kind of answers itself. Have partnerships. If you're a service area business, things that you may not even think about, such as if you're a painter, a lot of times when people have these contractors at their house, they'll have other issues, and they'll say, "Hey, do you know someone that does this or someone that does that?"
Yeah.
And so if you're a painter, for instance, you might have relationships with an interior designer, even an HVAC contractor, because they might say, "Hey, do you know anyone that I need an HVAC contractor? There's something wrong with my air conditioner." And if you have those relationships, that it, you can refer them, they can refer you. Basically it's free business. It's an influx of new leads, and do things like go on podcasts. Build that authority and that trust. It goes back to what Ken said: experience, expertise, authority, and trust. And you can do that. Guest blogging is a way to do it, but that's a lot more effort, I think. Whereas going on a podcast, it's more of a time thing. They're going to ask you questions, you answer them, and that helps build your authority. And these things are out there, and it's that all adds to the valuation, because with the referrals you have, that this influx of leads from that you probably wouldn't otherwise get. And like I said, going on podcasts helps establish you as an industry thought leader, especially in your local market. And if you're a local business, that's what's important.
Yeah. Building strategic partnerships just makes sense, right? Like if you can build,
It
I
does, and
always
a
look,
lot of small businesses don't do it.
yeah, it takes kind of a paradigm shift to think about it. But being a connector in your industry, in your community, basically, you can think about it as creating multiple funnels to lead into your business, or you can think of it as, putting more fish lines in the water, however you want to think about it. But these can be tremendous sources of, first of all, they can be tremendously fulfilling because you're helping other local businesses while helping yourself. It can be really cool, but it can have a huge effect.
Yeah, join your local chamber and develop relationships with these other businesses. Sponsor something in the community, be a part of some kind of charity. And this goes back to, if, let's say, you do something with your local Habitat for Humanity, maybe you sponsor an event, you can get a link from their website back to your website, and that can be really powerful.
Yep. Yeah. Like as an example, in the hearing aid industry, I used to remember back in the day when I was helping in that industry from a manufacturing standpoint, we would help our clients, audiologists and dispensers, help grow their businesses. And some of them were very smart in the strategic partnerships they had, and they would make relationships with denturists. They would make relationships with seniors residences, where they would do like on-site hearing checks and stuff like that. And it's, some of those things seem really obvious once you see them, but they're not always obvious when you're, in the day to day of your business. So it makes sense to start to think about, like, hey, who else in the BNI world, we would call this power teams, like who else serves the same customers as I do? And I think that's a really powerful idea.
Yeah, and doing things that offer added value to your customers can help you get referrals, and this is something we haven't talked about, but referrals and reviews. A lot of roofing companies, you have, a lot of times you have to ask, and I don't understand this, but they have what they call a marketing promotion, and they'll put us, anytime, if you get a new roof on your house, that they always put a sign in your yard.
Yeah.
And a lot of times you say, you know what, you're using my property to advertise. Tell you knock a couple $1,000s off that price, and you can put a couple signs in my yard, and you can leave them up there for 2 months, and they'll
Yep.
do it. You have to ask, and it's like they should offer that. They should say, okay, here's the price, but you know what? We put our signs in your yard. We'll take $1,000 off the price of that roof.
That's right.
And then the customer sees that as added value, and they'll give you a positive review. They'll refer you.
Yep. Yep. Great idea and great concept there. And Paul, Ken had to run out. He had an
Yes,
appointment, but I think we have some recordings for him. Is that right? For
we
the
do.
next question. All right. So let me set up the question. It's what are some effective pricing strategies that can boost a business's valuation?
All right.
So when it comes to pricing, this is really a hard thing for many businesses. When you're thinking about how to price everything that you offer, your products and services, when it comes to business valuation, I think the really important thing is you've got to focus on value-based pricing. You don't want to have, everything be price driven, because those customers might tend to see you as a commodity. And if they find somebody who's cheaper, and they don't see the value that you add and provide beyond that, then there's really not going to be any reason for them to stay. And part of, business valuation is not just what is your value today, but what is it going to be in the future when somebody acquires your business. So you really want to focus on, having value-based pricing and selling on value instead of selling on price. The other thing is, you should have a strategy that is in place to help you increase your average transaction and revenue. So, having an upsell or a cross-sell strategy is always a great idea. When you're coming up with pricing, it's really common and I think a really good best practice to have, a pricing table where you give somebody 3 options, the good, better, best. The overwhelming majority are going to take the better. And so you want to price it. You want to price your better option to really be that big value providing thing. But then you also have the ability, because you've set the expectation, that there's an upsell that you can do. And also there's a downsell that you could do in the event that there's an economic situation with your clients where they don't want to leave you, but they need a path to downsize their investment with you. So that can be a great thing because it still keeps them sticky and still keeps them as customers for you. You want to stay away from discounting your products and services. I'm a bigger fan of adding value if you're going to do anything. But the thing is, I think you should always lead with value anyway. And, you're selling a solution, a product or a service, and it delivers on a promise. And so you need to be really clear about what that promise is. And therefore the messaging and the clarity of your message is critically important. If you've got a clear message and you explain how you solve a problem, you're going to be way ahead of most of your competitors because they're not going to be that clear. And we live in a world where there are a lot of distractions and, more and more people just want to get stuff done. And if they feel like, yes, this is answering the mail, it's going to solve the problem that I have, you're in really good shape. Creating packages, again, both upsell and downsell options to have that stickiness. If you're helping somebody solve a problem and it makes sense for them to make a deeper investment with you, have a strategy to increase the share of wallet that you have. If you sell something that you like, for example, an HVAC contractor, one of the things that they do to stay sticky is they provide, twice a year cleaning checks, one in the spring and one in the fall for the air conditioner or their heater as appropriate to the season. The reason they do that is because they want to stay in place. They want to have their literally stickiness. They want to put their sticker on your unit so that when you go look at it, you automatically know who you are going to be calling. But the reason they're doing that is because they want to stay top of mind, and they want to be the company that gets that call if and when their customer has to replace the unit. So you want to think about, how do you remain and stay sticky? If you're a roofing contractor, that's going to be a real challenge. You've got to think about that. There are great ways to do it. I think one of the best ways to do it, read the book called Subscribed. It talks about how we live in a subscription-based economy. And if you can create a subscription model for your business, that gives you stickiness. And the great thing about subscriptions is, so many things we buy today are subscription based. So it's not an uncommon thing for people to say, oh, okay, I can pay this and get this taken care of for this period of time. Great. Solves my problem, out of my hair. Perfect. Anyway, that's what I would recommend in terms of pricing.
Awesome. There were some great points there. One of the interesting things I pulled out while I was listening to Ken was, and it was almost, I wanted to bridge it a little bit more, is competitive pricing. He didn't talk too much about that, but I think it's really important for us as businesses, depending on your business. Every business is different. Every industry and geography is slightly different. But if you're like most small businesses, you need to understand where you fit in the competitive landscape of pricing. So you need to do your homework. You need to put out the feelers to find out what your competitors are charging for similar services or products, because you don't want to be the lowest price one, because that's usually a race to the bottom. There's always somebody that will undercut the price and discount the price. But obviously, from a sustainability standpoint and a valuation of your business standpoint, that's a bad strategy. And then you usually have your high-end guys and customers. There's risk at both ends. There's risk with the lowest price, and there's risk with the highest price in the mind of the buyer. And so most people feel comfortable in the middle, unless you have highly refined your audience and your target audience, and they are your ideal clients or customers are luxury buyers, and those guys want to buy the most expensive product. And if that's who you're after, that is a super sustainable model, because you're going after the cream of the crop, as far as, people who want the very best service. They want they want it to be the easiest they possibly can, but they want to align themselves with you because you're the best in the industry. So I think that's something to keep in mind as well. Paul, any thoughts on pricing?
Yeah, depending on it, back to what you said, depends on the industry that you're in, because if you can show value, at the higher end of that spectrum. If you go back to the roofers, you have, there's different types of roofs, but the lowest price, most common, or historically the most common type, is that it's called a 3-tab asphalt shingle. That's what you see on a lot of houses. And a lot of people, when they're looking at roofs, they're going to look at price. Okay, that is not a cheap endeavor, unless you somehow manage to get the insurance company to pay for it. But if you get a 20-year roof, you might get 15 years out of it if you're lucky. That, because there's a lot of different things that go into it. Then you have what they call the architectural shingles, which is they have a lot of benefits, but they actually have a lot of fiberglass in them. They're more durable, and it costs a little more. And you'll get 25 years out of that roof. And then above that, you have the metal roof, which is almost twice as expensive, but you'll get 50 years out of that roof. So if you could say, look, yes, we know that this architectural shingle is, 30% more than this asphalt, but it's a one and done thing, basically, depending on where you are in your life. If you're, 40, 50 years old, and this thing is going to last 25 years, that you're done. Yeah. So you're adding value. So, okay, look, yes, it is more, but it is a one-time investment. You do this one time, you're done. And I think in situations like that, it it can help because it's added value. Yes, you're going to pay more up front, but you're done. You're not going to have to put another roof on your house.
Absolutely. Yeah, great points. Or you can just live like a hobbit under the ground.
Yeah. Hey, caves are free.
Paul, how can small businesses optimize their sales and marketing funnels to increase valuation?
Well, I guess first thing I'd ask is, are you aware of your sales and marketing funnel? You
Do
have
you have one?
well, you have one. Every business has one. They may not realize they have one. They may not be aware of it, but you have one. Customers go through a process. Unless you're selling a $10 widget, you may not have much of a sales funnel. But if you're selling something like fiber cement siding, where people are going to spend 30, 40, $50,000, you have a sales funnel and you better be aware of it. And the higher ticket item you're selling, the more aware of your sales funnel you have to be. So, and you have to know what the stages of that sales and marketing funnel is. And you have to implement, the longer your sales cycle is, the more the whole customer nurturing and marketing automation things come into play, because you have to stay in contact with your customers. Because if you have a 6-month sales cycle, people may forget who they contacted, and they're, I was looking at putting this fiber cement siding on my house, and that's a big investment. And who did I contact? I don't know. Let me go look it up online. And then your competitor pops up, and then they go to your competitor. And we see it happen all the time. So first of all, be aware that you actually do have a sales funnel. You may not realize it, but your customers have a process they go through, or your prospects have a process that they go through. And know what the stages of that marketing funnel and that process is. Know where your target audience is. If we talk about, I use the example of accountants. Maybe people go to Facebook to find an accountant. I don't. I certainly wouldn't. I don't think most people would. So know where your target audience is, and stay top of mind. Retarget, remarket to them, and that's the only way you can do that is if build your prospect list. Offer lead magnets on your website, collect email addresses, and the lead magnet is make sure they know they're opting in. And if you have a long sales cycle, you're going to have to nurture that. So know what the stages of your sales funnel are, and you're going to have different content, whether it's email, website, whatever it is. You're going to have different content for each stage of that funnel. And yes, it's a lot of work, and yes, it's an investment of time and money, but the payoff can be huge.
Yeah.
Especially if your competitors aren't doing those things.
Yeah. Great points, Paul. The thing I've seen a lot lately is high ticket value item businesses, usually in the service business, really missing the nurturing pieces in between key marketing hourglass or key journey steps, where as a business you have the opportunity to nurture them. Yes, nurture the relationship, stay top of mind. But even more importantly than that is you get the opportunity to pre-educate them in your philosophical methodology of approaching whatever problem they have. And quite frankly, it keeps kind of poking the wound a little bit, because whatever reason caused them to reach out to you as a business, they have a pain point. And so you continuing to stay in touch with them, it just reminds them that pain point hasn't gone away, and it positions you as the very best option for them to solve that problem. And I think that's a really big element in the nurturing process that businesses often lose sight of, because they're so fixated on the top of the funnel and where the leads turn into customers that they forget the in between.
Yeah, and a lot of times they're fixated on the bottom of the funnel, and you see this a lot with paid advertising. It's
Yeah.
like, yes, you're paying per click or paying per lead, whatever it is, but if it's intent driven and they clicked on your ad, but if they don't know you or know who you are or know your company or your business, why should they trust you? What reason do they have to do business with you? And you still have to have, and this is where remarketing comes in. If someone clicks on your ad, that most people do not convert from an ad. They may click on an ad and then they'll go do more research about that business, unless you have that brand recognition. You know, they may click on, they may be looking for maybe they're looking for a kitchen remodel. It's another big investment, and they see an ad and they click on it, and they've never heard of your company. They're not going to call you up and say, hey, let me give you $50,000. It's not going to happen. They're going to go do some research, and a lot of times that ad is actually the top of the funnel. Yeah. It's not the bottom.
Right, because the average journey of a buyer, they will probably check out your website, look at your reviews, do some research to see how you are in the community on Facebook or Instagram or wherever. And all of that is going towards the purchase decision, but they're on a journey.
Yeah, and I think that's something a lot of businesses don't realize, that a lot of times paid advertising is actually the top of the funnel, whether they like that or not. It really is.
Yeah. Yeah. Which actually makes the most sense when you stop to think about, like, these are people that have not met you, heard of you, probably, this is their first interaction with you. You need to have a longer play than say, why aren't they buying, their clicks? Why aren't they buying?
Yeah, they clicked on my ad. Why didn't they buy? Well, because they don't know who you are, and you're doing nothing to nurture that cycle or that relationship.
Yeah. All right. I have another question for Ken. Paul, do we have a video queued up for that one if I introduce it? Okay. So the question for Ken is, what are some key metrics to track in order to gauge the effectiveness of marketing efforts? Or did I just scroll?
I think you skipped one.
I'm sorry. Hang on. I totally, my system, I have my things there.
I think it was customer feedback or something.
Yes. Thank you, Paul. Sorry about that. So the question that Paul should ask, because he knows which question we're actually on, is what role does customer feedback and testimonials play in increasing a business's valuation?
All right.
So customer feedback and testimonials actually plays a huge role in increasing a business valuation. People want to, they want to work with a reputable business, and therefore people want to buy a reputable business. If you have strong feedback and testimonials and you've built up social proof about your business, it increases the perceived value. So you need to do that by having a system in place. Don't just let it happen. You've got to have a system in place to continually get people to leave feedback and reviews, and also, take that information that you're getting to heart. In feedback, it could be in the form of a survey or a questionnaire, and you want to incorporate any constructive criticism to make your products and services and customer experience better. So, it's probably something that a lot of people may gloss over, but again, I can't stress reputation, leveraging customer feedback, incorporating that to make things continually even better, generating social proof, and building that trust level is just absolutely huge.
Yeah, and it just makes sense, right, Paul? Like if a business, a bank, whoever's evaluating your business and the value of your business, they want to know, like, do you do a good job, and do your customers like you? And so if you're not ongoingly generating great feedback and testimonials from your customers or clients or patients, and you're not actively doing kind of benchmark surveys for customer satisfaction, you're really leaving a big gap in their knowledge of your business. And so and as Ken said, it's so important to improve your products and services as well.
Yeah, and I mean, if you have positive feedback and positive reviews uh, from your customers, that goes back to the trust factor of the
Mhm.
experience, expertise, authority, and trust. And if you do a good job and you have positive reviews, obviously that's going to make your business worth more than, say, a competitor that has a lot of bad reviews.
Yeah. I think this leads nicely into the next question for you, Paul, which is how can small businesses utilize data analytics to improve their marketing efforts and ultimately their valuation of their business?
Analytics is complicated. Don't do it. Joking.
I'm like, who did I get on this podcast today? All these negative comments.
Uh,
Don't waste the time.
some of the biggest things that analytics can help you with is it can help you understand customer behavior and trends and preferences. Google Trends is a great resource. But it can help you understand that customer journey that we always talk about. What are people doing? What pages are they going to on your website? Normally people are going to wind up on your homepage, but a lot of times we see where there's a certain page based on the search query that people type in. There's a certain page or blog post that people wind up on for some reason. You may not know the exact why, but that people, whatever they're looking for, they're winding up on a certain page or a certain blog post even more often than your homepage. And you might want to take a look at that and see what you can do to improve that, update it, because it's obviously driving traffic. And that's going to, that can help you optimize your marketing campaigns. It can help you target the right audience. It can help you know what social media platforms that your customers tend to be active on. Because if you're in an industry where, if you're an interior designer, Pinterest is probably a great platform for you. LinkedIn, maybe not so much. So if your target audience tends to not be on a social media platform, you might want to have a presence there, but I wouldn't put a lot of money into it. And that's the kind of things that analytics can tell you.
Yeah. No, great points. I loved it that you brought into the conversation Google Trends, right? Google Trends has been a tremendous tool for us, especially when we notice uh, industry nuances. Say, for example, especially around COVID, and then following COVID, we have some people in the trades who, like, we were just killing it in 2020, because people, as in a general sense, were stuck at home, and they looked around and they were like, I can't travel. I think I'll invest some money in fixing up my home, especially since I'm stuck in my home. I want it to be a nicer place. And we saw sales shoot through the roof for a lot of our trades clients. And then, the following year was really, really strong. And then in 2023 and even near the end of 2022, we saw it trailing off, right? When borders were opening up and people could travel more, they started to put their money back into other areas. And without Google Trends being able to say, well, when you look over the historic search patterns of people associated with your services or products, here's the trends, right? If you could not have a tool like that at your disposal, you'd be just guessing. And, you know, I forget who quoted it. It's been a quote from many really good business consultants, but if you can't measure it, you can't optimize it, or manage it, right? And so having analytics at your disposal really gives you the insights that you as a business owner needs in order to make wise business decisions.
Yeah, I think 2021 and 2022 were kind of outliers.
Yeah.
And that goes back to the trends, but I think the whole COVID thing, it drug a lot of small businesses kicking and screaming into the 19th century. I mean, they were old school and it worked for them. And yeah, we had a client that moving from post-it notes to spreadsheets was a major upgrade for them. And
Yeah.
it worked for a long time, and then this whole online thing happened and COVID, and people weren't meeting in business. They were doing everything online, and a lot of small businesses, they just were not prepared for that.
Yeah.
And their competitors that were benefited from it, and if you weren't, you struggled or maybe went out of business. And you have to keep up with the times. Yes, it's an investment of time and money, but you just never, life happens. There's another term that I won't use, but life happens, and you can't just ignore these things. The way people do business, and I've said it before, that your customers are not you. Maybe you've been in business for 20, 25 years and you've done things a certain way, but the longer you're in business, the younger your customer base gets, because people get old and they die, and you replace them with younger customers and they interact in a different way. And if you don't realize that and adapt to it, you're not going to be around.
Yeah. Yeah. Paul, that was a great lead in actually to the next question. Do we have a video for Ken on this one?
We do.
Okay, awesome. So the question I asked Ken is, how can small businesses build a strong online presence to enhance their valuation?
So we talk about this all the time in this podcast, and I really strongly believe this. One of the best things that a small business can do is build a strong online presence. That is going to be so important in enhancing your valuation. And it all starts with your website. Your website needs to be written to solve problems for your ideal customers, and it needs to be clear, crystal clear, with calls to action about how you help somebody solve that problem, where you're serving as the guide. Your products and services, they need to just ooze value, solving problems for your clients, making it compelling, getting them to want to take that action. It doesn't stop just at your website, though, although your website's the critical piece because that's really the only thing that you're going to own. You need to maintain, if it's appropriate, if you're a local business, your Google business profile. You need to own and control your social media accounts. Don't outsource that. Even if you have somebody else managing it in an outsourced manner, you need to own these things. You need to own your advertising accounts, your Google ad accounts, your Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn ad accounts. You need to be the owner of those accounts. Again, it's perfectly fine and probably even recommend, something I would strongly recommend, to have experts manage those for you, potentially in an outsourced capacity, but you've got to own those. You want to take control of how the information about your business is listed online everywhere. Don't leave it to chance. You've got to be very proactive. When you don't take care of stuff like this, and a potential buyer is looking at your business and they see bad data about your business, or they see a website that's not compelling, or it speaks a bunch of gobbledygook that really doesn't address what the customer's problems are, you're costing yourself a lot of money. You don't want to do that. Clarity is critical. Focusing on the problems you solve for your clients, absolutely critical. I think, you've got to have strong traffic sources built in, with your online presence. So building a website's not enough. Even if you do a great job of search engine optimization, it may still not be enough, because not everybody knows, and not every small business is going to be able to invest the whole myriad of money to rank for all of the important keyword phrases that they want to show up for to build the total amount of traffic. Sometimes you need to provide education. Sometimes you just need to drive people there to pique their interest, and then you need to nurture them along. And so the other thing is having a marketing automation system in place, proving that you're not leaking any of the leads, that you have a great follow-up and close system from anything that's coming in online. So whether that's coming in from your Google Business Profile, Facebook Messenger, forms, or phone calls from your website, you want to demonstrate you capture those clients and those opportunities. You manage and you track them using an opportunity pipeline, and you nurture them to the point where they just don't stop when they raise their hand. You actually get them to become paying customers. So, I think, way too many businesses, they just don't even think about what their online presence can really do for them in terms of massive value that it adds to the business. And yet they spend thousands of dollars a month on renting office space or a retail space. Let me tell you, your online presence, when you make the investment, it's going to show. And when you do that, in addition to, if you have, physical space where people come to, it's going to pay off in the long run. So don't forget, you've got two homes you've got to build. You've got to build, the home, if it's appropriate for your business, where people come to your place of business, and you have to pay rent for that, and you have to pay for utilities or whatever. But you got to do the same thing with an online presence. And all this stuff isn't free, even though you can sign up for Facebook and Instagram and yada, 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 all for free. You need to own and control, and you need to make an investment in those, and you need to treat those like they're your home cumulatively, especially your website, but everything else that feeds it is your digital home. And that is critically important for valuation.
All good points. No argument from Paul or I on that, I'm sure. In fact, we set that up really well. Paul, just as a final question, we talked a little bit about, Ken talked a little bit about testimonials and reviews, but I think there's a bigger part of this, which is called reputation management. What role does reputation management play in increasing a business's valuation?
Yeah, we've talked about this a little bit, and we're running low on time, so I'll go through pretty quick. But
Sure.
it's really important because it goes back to that trust factor. And if someone is, if someone, bank, whatever, is looking at the value of your business, and they're going to look at your reputation, and do you have positive reviews and positive testimonials, and are you responding to those reviews? And look, no one's perfect, and businesses get bad reviews, and sometimes undeservedly, but are you dealing with them? Are you responding to them? If you do screw up, and everybody does, do you try to make it right? Mm-hmm. And those are all important. That goes, like I said, all goes back to the trust and authority that you're building with your brand, and getting these reviews. And goes back to something Ken talked about, marketing automation. You can automate review requests. Now you can automate the responses too. I'd be careful with that, but it's better if you have someone actually responding. But you should respond to the reviews, but you can automate the review request process. And that's huge, because a lot of people, they'll leave a review if you ask, but a lot of times they're not going to think about it.
Yeah.
So you have to ask for that review. So yeah, it's your reputation, your online reputation is extremely important when it comes to the valuation of your business.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I don't think I need to add anything to that. And as Paul said, we have run on a little bit long. I think this was a really important topic, and I'm glad we covered it. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to any of your marketing guides here. And I think this is a good place to wrap up. So thank you to Ken and Paul for sharing their thoughts on this important topic. And thank you, as our audience, for joining us today. I hope you found value in this. And if you have topic ideas, send them our way. We're happy to cover them. And if so, if you love this podcast, please share the link with others who might benefit from it. And until next week, keep calm and mark it on.